Good morning from the south of France after a weekend of F1 action at Le Castellet. What did we learn? I'm going to run through a whole lot of things that I noticed for you in 8 seconds' time. Over the 4 days of the French Grand Prix, plenty happened. I'm going to step it back to Thursday now, and a more interesting opportunity for me was seeing Seb dressed up like this with Johnny Herbert driving in this 100-year-old Aston Martin. It was a lovely thing to see. Britta was there with Seb, and the funniest thing was that Johnny Herbert came up and gave Britta a kiss, and Britta sort of took a step back and said, "This is the first time this happened. You never ever kiss me hello. I feel a little bit awkward." She was having a bit of fun with him, but it was done for a segment on Sky, and they only had a couple of laps going around the track in this 100-year-old car, and the F1 car actually had the old Aston Martin logo on the nose for the race weekend. In fact, I noticed this sticker over the nose cone early Thursday morning and asked somebody what it was about, and they gave me the heads up. Being in France, you'd expect good food, and there were pastries galore down in the paddock, and it was lovely to see. Every day they'd offer up some sweet treats. Did the drivers have any? Well, actually, a couple did. Yuki Tsunoda, one of my best posts for the weekend, enjoyed a croissant. We had Alex Albon and his girlfriend Lily stop by, and Sandra Jivacek, along with Nicholas Latifi. And thumbs up, too, for that lovely food. On the subject of food, what does an F1 driver have for breakfast? This is Lando's plate on one of the mornings. This is probably going to be the last French Grand Prix for some time. But I must say, the promoter goes out of their way to make sure that the media are well looked after. Great food in the media canteen, a gift pack that was packed full of goodies, including this very popular bucket hat, which a lot of people were wearing at the track. You've already seen Yuki with his. Valtteri Bottas wore his as well. Really popular hats. Oh, and this fellow was even wearing some Le Summer Race shoes. I know you like fashion, so let's go to what the drivers were wearing. Zhou Guanyu came in these black off-white pants and a Puma top, and have a look at the shoes. George Russell looked like he could be heading out on the water in this nice striped shirt. Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda, as usual, in AlphaTauri clothing. Lando was wearing quadrant gear. Lewis Hamilton came in 4 sensational outfits, as per usual. And my biggest post of the weekend, I think it was, certainly my biggest fashion post, was Daniel Ricciardo on Thursday in this Gucci shirt. I mentioned to him on the Friday that the shirt looked magnificent, and he said, yeah, and even better, they sent it to me. So which drivers had family and friends at the track this weekend? Well, I can tell you Pierre Gasly's parents, Jean-Jacques and Pascal, were at the track. In fact, Pascal is intimately involved in Pierre's career. She works behind the scenes handling a lot of his merchandise sales. Mentioned Alex and Lily, mentioned Nicola and Sandra. Late on Sunday, I happened to see on the way out Checo Perez's sister Paola and also his wife Carola. Yuki Tsunoda's parents were once again at the track. Kelly Piquet was back at the track with Max. Another Pascal was with us. This is Charles' mum. Lando Norris's dad Adam was at the track. Both the Alpine drivers had their girlfriends with them this weekend. Elena Berry looking spectacular in this sparkly outfit on the Friday. And Kevin Magnussen's wife Louise was there and was happy to smile for me. Who else was at the track on the weekend? Well, a couple of interesting people. Matthew McConaughey was a guest on Friday. I think he was, in fact I know now he was Lewis's guest because Penny Tho, who also handled Tom Cruise's guesting at Silverstone, was in charge of that. And we had Patrick Roberts, a violinist from Australia who's quite a talent and recently did a collaboration with Sting. Most of the drivers use the same centre swipe gates, and there were probably 50 to 60 odd people each day waiting out the front for drivers. I don't know how they get there. I think they're paddock club or they're workers getting selfies and autographs. But if you're after an autograph of an F1 driver, I'm going to suggest you go right now to kimellman.com and register your interest in future collaborations. I've already done one with Fernando Alonso, did one with Pierre Gasly, and typically I send the advice out to a mailing list, and very quickly those prints are gone. So get online now to kimellman.com and register your interest. I will touch on what the drivers drove later in the week, but a couple of drivers came in on bicycles. A couple of them rode the track on bicycles on the Thursday, including Esteban Ocon, who had his own Esteban cycling jersey on here and a bike that was a special one. It's a collaboration with a company called La Pierre, and there are only 110 of these bikes available. It has some nice markings on it, and it looked pretty impressive. How was the traffic getting up to the track? Well, I think because I came in early all 4 days, I had no problems. But a lot of people said on the race day it was horrendous. Nothing as bad as it was a few years ago. And leaving the track on Saturday and Sunday nights, it was very busy. The problem with that track, though, is the fact that it's on the top of a mountain. And there are only a couple of roads in and out. Jumping to Saturday, I saw Lando Norris come in talking to his crew, his videographer, as he was coming in, and he was asked where did he think he could finish, and he said, I think P7. Well, he did better than that, didn't he? Finished P5, and during Q3 I ended up coming back into the paddock. And the beauty of that is there's hardly anyone there because everyone's watching the race, and you get to see drivers come back with their trainers, sweaty, having just got out of the car, and they're virtually on their own, as was the case with Seb here and his trainer Mark Arnold. Mark and Antti Concess share the races about 50-50. But after quali, I accompanied Pierre Gasly to the other side of the track, where Pierre has his own merchandise stand. Have a look at this, it's huge. And I've got to be honest, I had no idea he was so wildly popular in France. So I accompanied him up to the top of this little, what was it, a stand. I had to go up a couple of rickety ladders. There was about 10 or 11 people in this very small area, and Pierre had whipped the crowd up into a frenzy. To get into the place, he needed 5 or 6 burly security guys to force a path. It was like pop stardom. He's accompanied by his business manager, his brand manager, and his mum. It's good to see Pascal over there with him. And I quite like this picture where people are just holding up their hats above the fence for him to sign. I'll admit we don't get out into the public areas very often, but that was a good chance with the Pierre appearance. But later that night I had to walk back past the grandstand on the pit straight. I came across these amazing puppet heads. They're a fair size, and I could pick a number of them out instantly. Lando I thought was pretty good. Gasly a giveaway, Lewis, Zhou, a couple of others, but gee, a lot of them I struggled with. But anyway, it was a lovely touch to see those out there in the general public area. Here's something you may not know, but once the race starts on a Sunday, that's the signal for the teams to pack up all of their garages. And there's a lot of work going on while there are still people in the paddock, like these guys up working on the Alpine hospitality suite, deconstructing it, and they all have to wear bright fluoro shirts, whether it be yellow, green or orange, just for safety purposes. Carlos Sainz, he did an interview after the race, and I was so thrilled because we don't often see Carlos smiley and happy, but shooting from just above this portable TV monitor, I was able to see Carlos reacting to whatever he was watching on that screen and getting some lovely warm shots. I saw Charles Leclerc come back into the paddock after he'd done his media following his crash on Sunday. He looked obviously disappointed, but I was impressed. In fact, I always am with Charles. Even in a state like that, if a youngster comes up and asks for a selfie or an autograph, he complies, and that's a lovely thing to see. I don't know whether you noticed, but there was a Ferris wheel set up at the track. It was a nice thing to put in the background of a shot, and going over for the Pierre Gasly appearance, I couldn't believe the people queued up to get over the bridge. There was probably a 15-minute wait to get from the end of the queue to getting onto the bridge. I put up a nice picture of Toto on the Saturday, and then found Toto and Susie come in on the Sunday and was lucky enough to get a shot of the pair of them smiling at me and looking straight down the lens. Now, getting a shot like that is quite rare, so thank you to the Wolves. Did you notice on the podium that the bottles used for the celebration had no logos on them? That's because in France, alcoholic companies aren't allowed to sponsor sporting events or cultural events. And how did that affect the cars? Well, Singer Beer changed their product logo to Singer Lemon Soda, which is a clever ploy because technically they're not advertising the beer, but probably the vast majority of the audience knows Singer for beer. It's a bit like Peter Stuyvesant, the cigarette company years ago, would advertise in Malaysia, Peter Stuyvesant Travel, because effectively they weren't advertising tobacco. And we can't have a French Grand Prix without these huge works of art, one on the podium and one down here at the pit entry. Did I capture any crashes or incidents? Oh, actually, yes, one. Mick Schumacher going for a very smoky spin on the Friday. But apart from that, it was just plenty of cars going past in regulation fashion. And at this point, I have to say that I've run out of things to say. So with that said, I'm going to say, please like this video, subscribe if you haven't done so, and become a member for a whole host of extras. You'll find all of my digital images at prostarpics.com. Head to kimillman.com to, at the moment, register your interest in receiving a signed F1 print from a driver. I'll be doing more collaborations later in the year. You can also find my F1 photo books there. I've just done the new French GP book, but you can find a book for every race and a book about every single driver. And where do you go on Instagram to find me? At Kim Illman, 355,000 followers, and I'd love to have you bump it up one more. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate. And we can't have a French Grand Prix without these huge, what are they called? Not statues.